Welcome to Leatherbrains, the podcast for fantasy football. Now, introducing your host, Hunter Slapdog Amaruso, and Matthew Scotty Holtmeyer.
Welcome in to Leatherbrains. This one is going to be fun for some people.
Let's get it.
It's Slapdog here, your host, as always, and I already have, as you've heard, Alan Casanova Castro on today's episode, as well as Scotty, the producer. Decided he wanted to join us as well.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
We have a lot to talk about, gentlemen. The NFL is rigged, so we'll be discussing some of that today. We're going to talk about the NFC, AFC championship games, of course, because they're both of those games. There's quite a bit to dissect. And then we're going to give our previews for the Super Bowl and have some Soupy Bowl conversations. And then we have a surprise at the end that it should be pretty exciting for all the brainiacs that kind of interact with us and tune in every single week. So, gentlemen, do we want to get down to business? We ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Let's get down to business.
We're going to start this off. We are not a Chiefs podcast, so we'll wait for the Chiefs. We're not a Chiefs podcast. We're going to talk about the Eagles versus the 49ers to kick things off here. So the Eagles win this one pretty handily, 31-7. You know, there was a lot of reasons as to why we could kind of concoct this score. I was expecting more. I think most people were probably expecting more. Both of these teams are elite. Both of these teams have extremely good defenses. So 31-7 was somewhat surprising to me. I think the narrative here is Brock Purdy left the game. And I think that's kind of the way that the media has spun this. That's kind of the way that a lot of people on Twitter are spitting this. Is that what if it's not why they lost this game? Let's start there.
I got something for you really quick. What if I told you that Brock Purdy had 100% completion percentage and he started and ended the game and they lost 31-7?
Yeah. Well,
good luck filling in the gaps of what happened during the game.
Well, the gap is he went 4 for 4 for 30 yards, which was good. I mean, he was good during his time on the field. I think the main question of this is not, Brock Purdy's out, blah, 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 blah. The main question is, what the fuck is Kyle Shanahan doing to these quarterbacks? Like, we keep talking about how he's like, he's a coach that makes quarterbacking easy and it makes them elite. Really?
Maybe
does he ruin their lives?
No, I think it's just he finds the softest ones because he's like, they don't need to be rough around the edges. I want to find the Charmin quarterback.
I'm gonna say he pre-selected Hall of Fame mode in Madden before he started playing. He's like, all right, I want to do this. I want to create the hardest road for myself that I can and see if I can win. And I think now he finally realized he couldn't do it. So he's like, all right, we'll try something different next year.
Yeah, we'll bring the difficulty down one level. We'll go all pro instead of Madden.
So we've been talking about the controversy of, is it going to be Trey Lance? Is it going to be Brock Purdy? Is it going to be Jimmy G? Probably not. Do you think they draft another quarterback? Do they need 7 or 8 quarterbacks on this roster at this point in time?
No, but I would have loved to see Kyle Juszczyk come in and take some snaps at quarterback. That was what I was hoping for this entire game. If you didn't watch the game, Brock Purdy, he left the game due to injury very early on. It was probably second snap. He went out. And then I think Josh Johnson is his name, the 4th string quarterback for this team, came out there and very obviously did not get things done. But in the third quarter, or second quarter maybe, Josh Johnson got a concussion. So they were out of quarterbacks. Brock Purdy, who went out of the game, was forced to come back in, and Kyle Juszczyk was the last man standing for them at quarterback. I would have loved to see that. I think it would have been absolutely electric.
Okay, quick question. I think before this game, we all said 49ers offensive line was elite territory?
Ish, yeah.
Do we severely overestimate that unit? Were we giving them way too much credit?
No. I think here's
4 quarterbacks got killed. At what point does it become an issue?
Wait a minute.
Something's not got one. You got one on a straight drop back that that whole right side didn't block anybody, and then you got Josh Johnson getting Ndamukong Suh right up the gut and then getting concussed. So I'm not sure
there's a couple things here because the Eagles' defensive line is very good. Like we have to acknowledge that. So they're two good units. So, I mean, obviously, both these teams are good, right? They made it to the championship. They are sound in a lot of different areas. It's unfortunate that Purdy went out, but I'm going to say this. I don't think Purdy being in would have changed this game. I think the Eagles still would have won this game. We all had the Eagles win in this game going into this. I think that the score would have been maybe a little bit different. And I wasn't impressed with the Eagles, and we'll get to that. But I think for the 49ers, I don't think that I think they still would have lost this game regardless of who was playing quarterback for them.
Well, giving up 31 points pretty much says that's definitive because both of these defenses are elite. And the fact that the Eagles were able to put up 31 points, it would have been very difficult no matter who's playing quarterback for the 49ers to match that.
So I thought about this when we were typing up the notes, and my first thought went to like, you have to change a whole lot of things if you're going to say Purdy stayed in. Like, do they possess the ball longer? Do they maybe score a few more points? Because if you remember, for a little part of the section of this game, it's 7-7, it's 7-14. It kind of got out of hand there, towards the end of the first half. And then obviously, even if you look to the second half, the Eagles scored 10 points in the second half. And the offense for the 49ers wasn't really doing anything. I think the Eagles still win this game. Okay. I think it would be a little bit closer and a little bit more nail-bitey if the 49ers had any kind of possession. There was no fear. Like if you're an Eagles player and you're going up against Josh Johnson and you're on offense, you're like, I can pretty much just do whatever the fuck I want.
Well, it's actually even worse than that because they're the only fear that they had was turning the ball over. So they did not run their offense at all in the second half. They basically just handed the ball off and just said, fuck it. They're not going to do anything. So we might as well take it easy and coast a little bit. And that's why I don't think that there's much you can take away. I know the narrative after the game has been kind of, well, the Eagles offense, they got the job done, but they didn't look great. Jalen Hurts didn't look great, but it's like, you can't take anything away from this offense in this game. There's just no reason for them to show their hand and to actually, run up the score. They were just running out the time.
I would agree with that 100%. And I think that was maybe some of the game script going into this game, because I feel like if, from a coaching standpoint, if they were able to get ahead like they wanted to and can kind of control the ball, they could run out the clock. And that's kind of what we saw, right? They obviously the score doesn't really reflect it. It was a boring game. At 100% was a boring game. But it was because they didn't have a quarterback to be able to get the job done. And I think that is the truth. And I think, like I said earlier, I think Brock Purdy would have helped the offense, but I don't think he would have got it done either. So now the question at hand is Brock Purdy, there's news coming out that he needs to get surgery. He'll be out for 6 months. I think this is good news for Trey Lance. I think this is really good news for Trey Lance because regardless, I think the surgery was kind of the cherry on top for Trey Lance in a lot of ways. And we don't root for injuries here on this podcast, but I think for Trey Lance owners in a dynasty format, this is probably the best possible outcome, because the inverse of this conversation is one of two things happens. Either Brock Purdy played the whole game and he actually takes the 49ers to the Super Bowl, or Brock Purdy played in this game and he lost this game. I think he would have lost this game regardless. But now that he is hurt, I think that the turnaround time for him to get healthy will enable Trey to maybe slide back in and have some more relevance. So, like I said, we don't root for injuries. Definitely wasn't something that was great to see. I would have loved to see him out there for the storyline and the narrative and for maybe to make this game a little more interesting. But I think the outcome is still the same.
I think you got to frame it. We're talking about looking ahead for the 49ers after this game. And I think for them, even like, do they even know anything? Like, cause Purdy got hurt, like he has to have surgery. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you, like you said, for the Eagles, I don't think you know anything. I think if you're the 49ers, you really don't know anything because your defense played fairly well. They just got leaned on. Like the Eagles line is insane. Like all they had to do was just lean on them the rest of the game. Would you say the 49ers are in win now mode post McCaffrey trade?
I lean in that direction but at the same time, I think that, they if memory serves, they Debo signed a contract, so he's there now for a couple more years. You have CMC, and I don't know what his contract looks like, but both these guys are they're not like a Mike Evans, Chris Godwin situation where they're both aging vets that have struggled to stay healthy. Yes, some of these players have struggled to stay healthy, but they're still young. And I would have to go look up their contracts. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I think there's still time. Like it's not like a panic button hits and we have to bring in like a win now quarterback type situation. I think that is certainly a conversation that's being had behind closed doors for the owners and GMs and the office of the 49ers. But I think it's you could look at it one of two ways. Like they could bring a vet in, and I Tom Brady is somebody that is heavily thrown around in this conversation. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know. I guess it would depend on the asking price for Tom Brady. We know that historically, somebody like Tom Brady, he doesn't demand the world for money. He would rather take a pay cut to be able to surround himself with talent so he can succeed, which is smart, right? And Tom Brady doesn't need money. It's not like he's hurting for a paycheck. What Tom Brady's doing is he wants another ring. So I think that I could maybe see it happening. But I could also see like, okay, we're a couple years into Trey Lance and we really haven't got to see what he's been about. Let's see what it is.
Right. I think the 49ers with the injuries, they didn't get to see anything. I don't know if they can make it's kind of a guessing game at this point, right? Like you don't really have anything solid. I put it in the chat, but they got Christian McCaffrey through 2025. So he's locked in for a bit. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I asked if it's win now, because then it's like, do the quarterbacks on the roster, do you believe any of them can win now? And you don't know that question. So then it's like, if they don't know that, are they going to lean to like signing somebody that can get it done?
I don't know. To me, the quarterback situation obviously is a question mark, but it also in some ways solidifies them as a win now team, because they've gone through this quarterback roulette all season. And guess what? They're still playing for the championship. They're still one of the most complete teams in football. They need one piece and they could be the best team in football. So, obviously it's a question mark, but they're no doubt in a win now mode. They want to get a ring in the next couple of years and they have the personnel to do it.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and look at who because there are some big name free agents on this team, I think, from the defensive side of the ball that may leave, and we as fantasy football minded folks are very focused on the offense, but you also have to think about the flip side of the ball, because this is the NFL, and if you lose some key pieces of defense, that could change the narrative for this team as well, to the point where they say, we do have talent on offense. We expect to get to the playoffs. Let's see what we can do in the playoffs, but let's give this young man a chance. So I don't have that information in front of me at the moment to be able to kind of dissect and maybe play a little bit of 49ers office chess, but
I'm looking.
Okay.
I'm looking. Not any of the big name guys that you would think. The only big name guy that I can see is Jimmy Ward. That he is,
and he is. That is, yeah, that is.
But he's also 30. He's gonna be 32 next year.
Yeah.
So they have some, but other than that, like they're not in terrible shape. And then I pinged you guys earlier with that cap going up. They don't have a ton out there that they absolutely need to resign. They have $7 million walking out the door with Jimmy Garoppolo. So
which is good.
I think a bulk of this team stays together for at least another year or two. So
then maybe they do grab a vet. And it becomes more of a Jordan Love type situation for Trey Lance, where he was drafted. He just has been chilling on the bench for X amount of years, and maybe he's going to get a shot. And that, that could happen. If you do that, do you take what you get for Brock Purdy, maybe a 3rd round pick, and you sell Brock Purdy if a team's interested?
Yeah, would you flip a coin? Trey Lance or Brock Purdy?
I mean, that's where you're at, right?
I think you hold on to Brock Purdy through at least his rookie deal, because he costs you nothing and he's a very, very capable backup. So I think there's no reason to get rid of him at this point.
Well, they have 2 rookie deals. Trey Lance.
That's what I'm saying. And Brock Purdy. So if you hypothetically, let's just, let's BS here for just a moment and say that the Falcons offer them a 3rd round pick for Brock Purdy. The 49ers have full intentions of taking a veteran quarterback in Tom Brady. Do they take? I mean, a 3rd round that's still a capable player that could make a difference on your squad.
If I'm working for the front office at San Francisco and you approach me with that trade, I'm going to look at you in the eye and say, do you realize how many quarterbacks we went through this year? I'm not just giving up our quarterbacks. Like, we need as many of these guys as humanly fucking possible, because clearly Kyle Shanahan has an affinity for getting them injured.
I think that's kind of a stretch. But like, if a
not
team
for quarterbacks,
maybe
not for quarterbacks.
He's I don't want to say he's unproven, but he's kind of unproven.
Every quarterback who's ever played for the 49ers is unproven. See Jimmy Garoppolo, because you put him in like 90% of the other offenses and he pretty much sucks. But because he plays for the 49ers in this great system, it makes him look awesome. So I think Brock Purdy's done a great job, but no one can say if he is capable of leading another team to success.
Yeah.
Which I think furthers the argument that a second might be too much. But regardless, There's going to be a lot of talk. And look, we don't work for the 49ers. We don't have any insider
Not yet.
information here. So I don't want to work for them.
Soon.
But I think those are conversations that are being had. And I think that is a fair conversation to at least entertain. And if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're this front office, you're having those conversations. You have to be.
Yeah. Trey Lance has a 4-year, $34 million contract, fully guaranteed.
And he's just chilling. And I'm
Brock Purdy has a 4-year, $3 million contract.
You're
Nice.
fine.
You don't have to move. You don't have to move them. You don't have to move either of them.
Yeah.
You can keep both of them and sign somebody if you want.
Well, and that's what I think they would do if they wanted to go that route, because the bottom line is these guys are costing you nothing. You don't even know right now which one you want to have as your future guy, if either of them. So why not develop them? Why not observe them for the next couple of years while they're really cheap and have potentially a guy that's going to win you championships for years to come? And you got plenty of time to figure out who that is. And by the way, as a quarterback, sitting on the bench for years at a time is not a bad move. See Aaron Rodgers. That man sat on the bench behind Brett Favre for a long time and came out and became one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's not a bad thing for you to learn under somebody else. So I think either way they're going to be fine. And if I'm them, I'm not looking to get rid of them.
No, and I'm not saying they're going to get rid of him, but like I think, and I don't know. We don't know, and that's part of the problem is we do not sit in practices and watch them practice. Trey Lance becomes incredibly interesting because of his legs, and as we've talked about, aging quarterbacks that are mobile quarterbacks, they tend to phase out quicker because they're more injury prone. They slow down. He is a mobile quarterback, right?
Yeah. I think the one thing hurting Trey Lance and all this is he doesn't have a cool nickname. Like if you have,
should we give him one?
We have Big Cock Brock, which that's pretty much setting the bar. He needs a good nickname because right now his marketing is less than. Maybe we do that. Maybe we need to like poll everybody and see. We need some good Trey Lance nicknames. Maybe that's what we can have the Brainiacs do via Twitter or somewhere. Just give Trey Lance a good nickname so we can get him.
Yeah, I think actually that does. Now that you say that, I think you're onto something. We need to make sure that he is starting quarterback next year. So we need to give him a cool nickname and kind of just spread it like wildfire.
Yeah. So we need to start thinking what nicknames would be good for Trey Lance so he can surpass Big Cock Brock and maybe get back to number 1 on the depth chart. That's our goal. Yeah. That's our goal.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can get that done. Eagles side of the ball. This game was not exciting. As I mentioned earlier, this game was not interesting. This game, as Scotty has said, I don't think you can take anything away from it from an offensive standpoint. All they did was run the ball. It was fine. They won the game. It was boring. They won the game. They did it. I mean, am I missing anything, guys? Because that's pretty much it, right? Their offensive line looked great. And we'll get to some recap or some preview of the Super Bowl where we'll kind of dissect what we think as far as going into next week. But looking at this game right here and right now, the Eagles played great. 49ers didn't have a defense, and I think they were, or an offense.
I was thinking during that game, how fun would that be to be in that stadium if you're an Eagles fan? You already know it's over.
Oh, dude,
you're basically 100%. Partying for the next hour and a half, 2 hours with your best friends, just getting hammered and celebrating.
Well, and then you climb up on top of bus stops and then you fall through them.
Yeah, and then they collapse. Yeah. They got to grease all the poles in that city because they know how to party.
Nice.
But yeah, it would be awesome to just be in that. All those Eagles fans have been drinking since like 4 a.m. Like they've been pre-gaming for the last 11 hours waiting for this game to take place. So they're hammered, having a great time. That's as good as it gets, man.
I think Eagles fans are probably the scariest fans in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think
that's not a stadium I'd want to get caught in.
It may be on my bucket list though to don an Eagles jersey and go to one of these big games where you can just sprint out into the street and do whatever you want for the next 12 hours. It's like the Purge.
That's what I was gonna say.
Party.
You can just do anything you want. You're hammered, drunk, and everyone else is like cheering you on.
Yeah, and it's not your city. So who gives a fuck if you break a bus stop? It's not your city. Yeah. You're going home the next day.
You fall into a subway window.
We have some good friends. They actually came to the ping pong thing, Matt, and he's a big Eagles fan. And he took some buddies of his to an Eagles game, but they weren't big Eagles fans. And one of them had like just bought a jersey and was in line at one of the porta potties. And the Eagles fans were talking shit to him wearing an Eagles jersey because they could sense that it was new and he probably had no idea what the team was doing. So they were like sniffing out people that weren't even legit. And
that's
like,
what I'm saying, dude.
to them.
Eagles fans are like, I think they're on another level.
Ruthless. Well, yeah. And when we were in Vegas, same thing. We had an Eagles fan with us, and he was like getting pissed off that people are acknowledging him because he's like, those are fake fans. I'm like, Jesus, like,
yeah, it's like, dude, they're supporting your team.
They're
man.
rooting
like,
for your team.
Yeah,
nobody's
like, give them a high
safe.
five. Shit, dude.
Nobody's safe. Respect though, man. Like,
Oh, God.
as a now as a Chiefs fan, I used to go to games like, and it was cost you like $1, and there's like nobody there, and you're watching like Brady Quinn like shit the ball like all over the place, and like
his own feet.
yeah, like it was, it didn't cost me anything. It's like now they're everywhere and everything's so goddamn expensive. Like I get it. Like it's kind of like they're crowding in on my territory now, so I get it. But respect to the Eagles fans, man. That stadium looked like a blast from the jump, and that Devonta catch. I think after that Devonta
kind of. Yes, thank you. We watched that. I was like, oh my God, what a play. And then they show like at the very end, they're like, and I saw it and I'm like, that's not a catch. And then kudos to the Eagles for getting up there, getting the play off before they had time to stop the clock. But man, it wouldn't have mattered. Like in retrospect, like, yeah, it sucked for 49ers fans, but okay, you take one touchdown off this board, the Eagles still win this very easily.
I mean, it set the tone, but there was a graphic going around that's like, okay, everyone's bitching about the catch, so we'll just take 7 points off the board, and then they were just sharing the score -7 points.
Yeah,
it's
like
okay. Okay.
You're ultimate. If you're Kyle Shanahan in that moment, though, Devonta gets up and he's running and like screaming, like, let's go, let's run a play. At what point did you not be like, I don't think he caught that motherfucker.
Wait a minute. He doesn't
like,
know.
I'm going to throw the flag anyways because he didn't look convinced, so I'm not convinced, so I'm throwing it.
And it's the first half.
I don't know if one of the commentators said this or I had heard this in passing somewhere, but like I think teams actually have like a code word for when they don't they are like, this wasn't a catch, so we need to hurry to the line, so they all start screaming it to run a play off. So I don't know if that happened there. I'm assuming it probably did happen there, but I just found that interesting. Is like they have these code words where they're like, dude, I don't think this was a catch. Like, let's hurry up and hike the ball before this screws us. So I'm sure that happened right there. And I really can't believe they got away with it.
I know we'll talk about the game here in a second, but juxtaposed to Kadarius Toney, when he got up after his non-catch and you could see it on his face, he's like, wasn't a catch, man. Like, I'm so sorry.
You gotta sell it.
You gotta
sell it.
Yeah, he didn't sell it. And, Devonta got up and he was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if I'm a coach, if any of the guy, like, if he's freaking out that much and not celebrating, like, had Devonta stood up and was just like flexing and like, let's go. Yeah. Like, I'd be like, oh, he probably caught that. But he literally stood up and panicked and was like, let's run a play. Like, that should be green light. Like, I'm just throwing the flag just because I don't even know what happened. Okay. I'm just going to like panic throw it.
Business idea. We scrapped the podcast and we instead go in on an acting course for NFL players to teach them how to react the proper way, no matter if they caught the ball or not. And now we got all these millionaires as our clientele.
But I bet that's not a thing.
I'm telling you,
you might have a business idea there, Scotty.
Genius idea.
I'd fake a concussion, maybe, like just so the attention was off the play.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm hurt.
Yeah, but then it slows down and then they get to look at it again.
True. Maybe not. Maybe not. Throw that off the board.
We'll put it in our acting class. We'll figure out what we need to do to get them.
We're still setting up the curriculum.
It was a hell of a play, though. That was a fourth down play, too.
Yeah, it was baller.
It wasn't like that was a second down play. That was a big early play. Dude, I can't say for certain if they didn't get that right. Like, if they didn't flip that, what would have happened the rest of the game? It could have changed the tenor of it. Like
it would have initially, but assuming that the injuries took place the same way, I don't know.
Brock Purdy doesn't get hit the same way.
I think if they put Christian McCaffrey
in air, it's the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
100%.
Everything else changes.
That play screwed the game for the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one. That's it. That was it.
I think if you put Christian McCaffrey in right away after the Johnson injury at Wildcat, I think that offense looks 20 times better. You got like 20 times more options than trying to put Brock Purdy back in and have him throw with his gimp arm. He can only throw it kind of accurate for like 3 yards. Like, I just didn't make any sense to me why they were trying to do that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't understand that.
You could see him warming up on the sideline, and like, no offense to my 9-year-old son, but like he doesn't throw a very crisp ball, but it looked eerily similar. And they can see that. Like, this motherfucker is not throwing it. Like, why? They can see that.
Yeah,
like,
put Kyle Juszczyk in. Put Kyle
anybody.
Juszczyk in.
Put literally anybody
Please
in.
give me some entertainment value for sitting my fat ass on the couch for the next 35 minutes and suffering through this game. Put Kyle Juszczyk in. Then I'm rooting for 49ers all the way.
At least have some fun. Like,
That's
if
what
I'm
I'm saying.
Shanahan, I'm like, fuck it, we're gonna run some cool ass shit now. Like,
we're gonna
let's
lose
have
this,
some fun,
but
boys.
let's
busting out
have
the
a good
red
time
book.
doing it.
Honestly, all these NFL teams need to just go and study tape of Taysom Hill and all the plays that he runs, and then just have that as your emergency option in case you get 7 quarterbacks injured.
Yeah, that's the 49ers solution. Go get Taysom Hill.
Let George Kittle play quarterback.
That guy never gets injured. He takes hits all the time. He's always good to go.
That's true. That's true. Last thing I'd like to touch on here is Trent Richardson. Is that his name? Or Williams?
Trent Williams, the left tackle?
Yes. Completely egregious. If you didn't see what happened, he grabbed a man and basically suplexed him at the end of the game. I think a lot of it was emotion and frustration, but you can't do that.
Yeah,
I didn't think there was any room for that. And
that was the Eagles backups are chirping like he's going to feel some type of way.
Sure, but why give him satisfaction?
It's an embarrassing moment when you're fighting on the field and you look up at the scoreboard and you're down by 30 points.
That's what I'm saying.
That's you being a dumbass. Like,
yeah,
you got to take your L and walk away.
Quick question before we move on. I know you wanted to touch on that too, but I wanted to talk about Hurts for 1 second, because I saw the talking heads on ESPN trying to do this as well, and basically trying to diminish him as a player going to the Super Bowl, saying he didn't really have to do anything. I mean, in my mind, he did what he had to do. He's still not 100% either.
You're talking in this game specifically?
I think through the playoffs. I think up to this point, they beat up on the Giants. They beat up on the 49ers. I think he made the plays he had to make. Like, what more did you want him to do? I think it was very confusing to me. Do you think if you fast forward again, just a quick sneak peek to Super Bowl preview, do you see that as a detriment that he hasn't really had to do anything? Are you nervous if he has to actually prove himself in the Super Bowl? Like, where do we think Hurts is on the scale of like
hurt?
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say it's very clear after watching the season. Obviously he's gotten banged up toward the end, but he is an elite quarterback. He is a top tier quarterback that is capable of doing it all on an offense with a ton of weapons. You should never underestimate Jalen Hurts. The dude is Superman in a lot of ways. So I think that's a huge mistake. As a Chiefs fan, I'm going to have many a nightmare about Jalen Hurts over the next 2 weeks. So I'm scared, and I respect the man immensely.
And I think you should. And I think, Scotty pretty much covered it all right there. Yeah, he has not looked 100% in playoff, but they're still winning games, and they're still getting it done. And I think a part of that is keeping Jalen Hurts fresh, keeping him able to get to this point where they're in the Super Bowl, because this is where it matters. Not that all these other games don't, because if they lose these games, obviously they're out. But they've gotten to the point where they haven't really had to say, you know what, we're going to unlock the full playbook here because we have to get it done. And they haven't gotten to that point where Jalen Hurts has to rush the ball. They're not doing a whole bunch of quote unquote wildcat stuff with Jalen Hurts where they're running the ball with him. We saw a couple plays sprinkled in here and there this last week, but they don't want to risk it. And I think that's a really fair thing to do. He's got 2 weeks to get healthy now. We've seen what Jalen Hurts is during the regular season, and he's been phenomenal. He's been an elite top tier quarterback, both with his legs and with his arm. They have a very explosive offense with the addition of AJ Brown in here. And you know what, we'll cover this, but I think Chiefs, as Matt said, I think there is reason to have some fear, because I don't, whether he's 100% healthy or not, I don't know. And we could say the same thing about Patrick Mahomes, but I think that he's going to be better in 2 weeks than he is right now. And I think that they haven't had to stress test him enough to get to that point, and they're still getting the job done. So
yeah, well, this is an elite team in the NFC, so this is their right to just coast through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. That's just what you get to do as an elite team in that conference.
100%.
They're just far and away the best, right? Like, no, not even close. And even people were kind of waffling on this Niners game beforehand, and like I thought it'd be a much closer, but my God, they are just a freaking juggernaut.
We all had the Eagles winning in this one, so
we didn't
predict this, but
no. All right, we'll go ahead and move to the Bengals versus the Chiefs, the game that we did not all have the same opinions on going into this. Chiefs win this game 23-20. I think there's a lot of different ways we can go with this as far as the conversation. I think there's a lot that we're going to discuss with this, but let's just start from the top, because the Twitterverse and the ESPN and all the NFL analysts and everybody involved is talking about the refs. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the refs. Let's talk about the
rigged
flag.
NFL.
Yeah, I don't know. So, well, let's just talk. Go ahead. I know where this is going to go, and that's why I'm not particularly excited to talk about it, because I'm sitting here with two Chiefs fans, and so you have to understand as I say this, I have no bias towards either team, and I will say this: I did have the Bengals winning this game. I had some pennies.
So did I.
Well, yeah, you did too.
So did I.
Boo!
But I didn't care. I still don't. I don't care who wins. I didn't really care who wins. For my own financial purposes, I would have liked the Bengals to have won, because I do think that the Bengals were and maybe still are the better team. But very obviously, the Chiefs got it done 23-20. The officials, the officiating, the penalties. That's what I think we need to start there. I'm going to say this. And I know that Scotty's probably going to disagree with me. Scotty has previously worked in politics, so he probably has a small paragraph already written and a bunch of analytics to back him up.
All up here.
But I'm going to say this, because I don't care about either team. The officiating in this game was terrible. The officiating in this game was absolutely awful. And it was for both parties. It was for both parties in this entire game. The most egregious penalty in my eyes was giving the Chiefs the ball again on third down. Did it matter? Maybe.
No.
It didn't. Okay, but hear me. Hear what I have to say here, because that official should get fired. I firmly do believe that official should get fired. He ran out onto the field. You can see it, and we all know what I'm talking about. And everybody who's listening to this podcast probably knows what I'm talking about. He ran out onto the field blowing his whistle. It's so loud in Chiefs Stadium that none of the players could hear it, so he ran back into the sidelines. That's not acceptable to me. So at that point, you run out on the field and you stop the play, and you wave your arms and you keep blowing your whistle and you call the play dead. Do not allow them to run another play and then say, oh, hey, sorry, that doesn't count. You get another one. And for me, I think that's unfair. And that's coming from an unbiased party.
I'm going to let my better half, Scotty, take this in a second. What I will ask is, do we feel like the outrage would be different if the Chiefs lost?
In terms of what? Like if the Chiefs lost?
Would people have cared as much if Mahomes lost?
I don't think they would have cared as much. But I think regardless, that's not fair for either party.
I don't think so either. And you could argue the game before this, if you really want to dive into the Eagles game, was also very poorly officiated. It just didn't really matter because it wasn't close.
And
everything gets everything gets exacerbated when it's like a 3-point game and you can point to like one thing. You're like, why did this happen? I think you look at it how you want to. Both games were not great. Like the refs this whole season have been trash.
I would agree.
And it just gets highlighted at the end. And so for the NFL, the thing that I point back to is, does the NFL actually care, or is this good for them that people are talking about the games in this way?
Well, and you bring that up, and I think there's some credence to that, because
NFL rigged.
That's what I'm saying, baby. Is the NFL rigged? I don't want to go.
I think this is like Major League Baseball.
All publicity is good publicity. That's what I'm saying.
I think it's in the same vein as like Major League Baseball. Do they give a fuck if the umpire's wrong sometimes? No, because you get the managers arguing, and that's good TV, and people are pissed off, and you get all this stuff. Like, I think for them, I think the NFL kind of relishes in the fact that there is a little bit of this like, ooh, what if we did this different? You know what I mean? Like not being perfect. And I also think we underestimate how difficult it is to be a ref in professional sports. NBA's getting roasted, NFL's getting roasted, Major League Baseball forever is getting like, are they all conspiring, or is it just actually very difficult in real time to get all these things right all at once. And
I don't think that they're conspiring.
I don't know. I don't
I'm going to
think
say
so
that.
either.
I don't think that the refs are
No.
conspiring, but
Well,
I think that was an egregious call. I do. Or they need not egregious call, but that should not be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
The Eli Apple hold right afterward. You watch that. Did he hold? Yes. Have I seen more egregious holding not get called? Also, yes. So
yeah, but it's because they've missed that call in the past. It's definitely a hold, and
it is a hold. I'm not
and
arguing
I would
I've seen
classify
worse
it as an
not get
egregious hold. He wrapped his arm around his neck and kept him from running his route. That's the definition of a hold. 100%.
Yes, but
Enough
I've
said.
seen worse.
Enough said.
Did Patrick Mahomes deserve the penalty at the end of the game for getting shoved out of bounds? 100%.
Yes.
100%. I'm not going to argue like that. And I can't pronounce the guy's names. Olisi or something. Olisai, whatever the Bengals player's name on the defense.
And that dude played his ass off too.
He did.
That's what sucks.
And it does.
He played his ass off.
My heart goes out to him because we said on the podcast last week, and I don't know if it was on this one or the one with Yeti and I, this game is going to come down to the end. This game is going to come down to the end because it has. Historically, both these teams play very well against each other, and that's what we saw today, or rather on Sunday. So do I care who won this game? Not really. I don't. I'm happy for you guys. Kudos, congratulations. I'm glad that the Chiefs have won. Do I think the officiants got it right? I think at times no. And it was for both parties. And a clear example of this, MVS. When he reached for the first down, ballsy call by him. I'm going to say that was a ballsy ass move for him.
Damn good
to
move.
reach out and get it. It was great. It was a wonderful play. But why does Coach Reed have to blow a timeout in order for them to review that? And so it's both sides here.
There are still people
never
saying that they
understood
shouldn't be able to review that. There are people saying, well, he's reaching the ball. How can you even tell if it was across the line? Even the Bengals coach, I'm drawing a blank on his name for whatever reason. He said the same shit. He was saying it on the sideline. How can you actually review that? How is that possible? It's like, well, the first down marker's on the yard line that the camera is directly next to. It's very, very clear. That's just one example of how stupid all of the criticisms have been throughout this. It's just been mind-numbing.
This goes back to my original point. There's technology out there that could easily solve this. You could put a marker on the first down thing. You put something in the ball. It reads it. It hits it. And
there is
like
you could.
This goes back to my thing, like with football coaches in general, and the way this game is officiated. Throughout the whole entire game, shit like this happens. The balls don't get spotted right. There was a first down in that game that the Bengals probably should have had, but they didn't spot it right, and it made it third down, which made them burn another timeout because they were trying to drive. But like all throughout the game, there's these things where like the ball's not quite spotted right or the time is not quite right. But then it's like we pick and choose when to do some of this shit. Like we're like,
100%.
okay, now all of a sudden the spot matters. Now all of a sudden the time matters. Now all of a sudden everything matters because we're at the very end, when it's like all of this accumulated should have mattered. Like, how does this affect the rest of the game? And like those are some things that frustrate me.
Yeah, not only that, but in particular, what's really frustrated me is all of these people that, there's like a montage video going around on social media now of all the missed calls, of a couple different instances where Chiefs players were holding or blocking in the back or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you can have a poster of the schedule and close your eyes and point to a game and go into that game. And if you focused on the offensive line, you could pick out 12, 13, 14 different times that an offensive lineman is holding and they don't get called for it. The fact of the matter here is, if you've been around football for more than 5 minutes, you know the adage. Every single play, there is holding. There is holding on every single play. They teach you from a young age as an offensive lineman to keep your hands inside and grab the jersey because it's less obvious.
Not the jersey, the pads.
Either way. As long as you're on the inside, it's not going to matter. There's holding on every single play. So I see these like montages of like, oh, look at this hold and this block in the back. I'm like, I could go back to this exact game and do the exact same thing to the Bengals and make the exact same video. And the only reason people are cherry picking these right now, they're retroactively going back and finding those because of the 5th down drive that you were talking about, Hunter, where, and again, that drive ended up being totally insignificant to the game because they had to punt the ball away anyway. And again, the Eli Apple penalty was an egregious penalty. That definitely deserved a flag. So I don't know what people want.
Go, man.
None of these penalties impacted the game whatsoever. And on top of that, let's go ahead and just read through the box score real quick. Total yards, Chiefs win. Total plays, Chiefs win. Yards per play, Chiefs win. First downs, Chiefs win. Passing yards, Chiefs wins. Completion, Chiefs wins. So what I'm saying here is that these penalties were so much less significant than the fact that the Bengals played a bad game and got beat in every facet of this game. To say anything otherwise is to disregard the efforts of Patrick Mahomes, of MVS, of Chris Jones, all these stars of this game that dominated, and people just pretend like that doesn't matter because they didn't like a couple of calls. It's just absurd. It pisses me off to
See, but okay, let's spin the narrative here for a second, because you are someone who is very vocal that when the Chiefs don't get plays penalized, you're pissed off about it. So
100%.
there's no winning. There's absolutely no winning, because when the Chiefs win and when you win, you're happy about it when the calls go your way. And that's the way of sports in general.
That's how every fan base works.
Well, 100%. And here's what I wanted to start off the rant with. You guys kind of took us, we dove right into it without me actually getting to set myself up. And how I was going to set myself up is all of us are guilty of that. All of us are guilty of seeing a call in the moment and saying, what the fuck, that's bullshit. The difference is when the game ends, and then you spend the next 24 hours, instead of looking at your team and saying, okay, we had the better offense, we had the better weapons, we had the better defense, we had the better special teams, and yet we didn't get the job done. Right. Papa John's. They had everything. And instead of looking in the mirror and saying, okay, what could we have done better? Maybe not let our quarterback get sacked 5 times. Maybe not throw 2 interceptions. Maybe not turn the ball over as much. Instead of looking in the mirror, they instead say, let me dig in my cabinet for my tinfoil hat and say the NFL is rigged and they only want the Chiefs to win and blah, blah, blah. All this unbelievable, ridiculous bullshit. So we're all guilty of it to some degree, but eventually you have to come back and say, okay, this game was close. Why was it close? Oh yeah, it's because we got beat in every measurable statistic in the game. That's the reason why.
I'm not going to sit here and say that the refs won. You know, there's a lot of memes going around, which are extremely comical.
They're funny.
Patrick Mahomes swapping jerseys with the refs.
I did think that was funny.
They're comical. They're funny, and I enjoy them. Do I think that the refs won the Chiefs this game? No. Do I think that some things should have went a different route with the refs? Yes.
You can say that in every game that's ever happened in the last 50 years.
Yeah, but you're a fan of the team.
True.
So you have a bias there.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is factually accurate.
Well,
so I do have a bias.
In your mind it is, and to other people
tell me where I'm wrong.
Yes. Let's go.
I've given you every single fact that you can go back and watch in the game. You can look at the box
You're speaking with emotion. That's the difference. Is you feel, and I can go back and we can put, if you really want me to deep dive into previous episodes of podcasts where we talk about Chiefs, every time that the Chiefs get screwed over on a call, you talk about it. So that's my point, is you're a fan of them. So you're pissed off because people are upset with the refs. I have no bias. I don't care who wins this game. I would have liked the Bengals to win for financial purposes, but other than that, I really don't care.
I did lose a couple $100.
Yeah, you did.
Although I will say I do owe Alan an apology because I gave him a copious amount of shit for betting against the Chiefs, but now I think you should just keep doing that because it seems like it might be good luck. So I'm all on board with it now.
God either wants me to be happy or win money, and he gets 2 options.
Both.
I was against the plan when I thought there was a good chance they would lose, but now that they've won, I'm all in. So send it.
I think to round this up, I get it. Like we said, every team does it.
They do.
Every game, and you're absolutely right. Had the Chiefs lost, you bet your ass I'd be out there with like my string and pictures and like conspiracy theory, like mapping out every instance that we got hosed. And that's just how it works. And that's why, like, it's fine. Like, I know a lot of people don't like the Chiefs. I know a lot of people hate the Chiefs now because they're playing well. I expect it. I think if you're a fan of any of those teams that are getting that shit, just embrace it. That means you're in a pretty good spot of where people want to be and don't want to see you there anymore. It's like the Patriots had, or it's like the Steelers have had to deal with in that division, or the Broncos, even in the division we're in. Like, you want to give teams shit that are up there. And I think if anything else, it's fun. It's a game. I lean into it. I think it's hilarious. Like, I'll talk shit to anybody, but at the end of the day, like, it's tough to ref these things. It's tough to call it in the moment. And when you see it through the glasses you want to see it through, you're going to shape it the way you want to shape it. We just sat here and said for both sides it was shitty. And if it was reversed, you could probably do the exact same thing for missed calls for the Bengals. I think for this game is what it comes down to is executing late in the game. And I think the Bengals O-line problems showed up all game long. And the fact of the matter is, like, they had the ball with about 2 minutes left in the game. And even in that, like, intentional grounding call, they picked up a 3rd and 16. Like, they were moving, like they had it going, and they just made some questionable mistakes. They had every opportunity to win that game.
They did.
And I think when you rewind it, you're like, oh, we got fucked. But it hurt. It's easier to say we got screwed than it's easier to say our team fucked up.
Oh yeah, this is where we fucked up.
That's what it is.
I do just want to kind of round. I want to round this off. Yeah, I want to round this off with some praise for Joe Burrow, because he's, especially from Chiefs fans, he's getting hosed a little bit. That guy had no time to throw. He's been dealing with this for 2 years where his offensive line just can't protect him. There's no doubt that dude is an elite quarterback. And if he gets the time that Patrick Mahomes had to throw, I think you would have seen a great performance out of him. So I have to hate Joe Burrow because this feels like a budding rivalry and I'm going to buy into it wholeheartedly. But I do think he's an awesome player and he didn't get the opportunity to be as good as he can be.
Yes. I think that, Alan, you spoke beautifully, and I really have nothing else to summarize because I think you did a very good job with it. But what cost the Bengals this game was not the refs. What cost the Bengals this game was a hurt offensive line. And I was impressed with the Chiefs defense the entire game because they found a way to get pressure on Joe Burrow very quickly. Something that the Bills, as Alan, you mentioned in our group chat, were not able to do. And there's a lot of frustration with Bills fans out there. They didn't. But
I said it in the article before that game that the Bills have to blitz like crazy, and they never did. It was like everyone and their mom realized that should have been the game plan, and they just never did it for some reason.
Yeah. So that was the narrative here. If you give Joe Burrow more time, the Bengals win this game. I really do firmly believe that, because
100%.
They have the weapons on the receiving game are just a hell of a lot better. And Joe Burrow is a good quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback. The problem is Joe Burrow had no time.
No. And as a football fan, that was submitted to me. Like, it was cemented in my brain as far as defensive lines. If you go back to the Patriots when they were undefeated and they played the Giants, and the Giants just had an unreal defensive line. Is Eli Manning better? No, obviously not. But when you have a superior defensive line in the moment, and I don't think, like, on paper, if everybody's healthy, I don't think it's that way, but they were down, right? They were hurt. Yeah. The Bengals had everybody healthy. Not going to go that way.
You think the Bengals
right?
win this game if they were all healthy?
Oh yeah.
I think just the Bengals on paper are a better team. They're the far more complete team. There's no doubt about that, which is why I'm relishing in this victory so much. I am currently drinking the tears of Bengals fans as they whine and complain about the refs, and I am just so stoked to be a part of it.
Salty. Yeah, I mean that's what it is. That's 100% what it is. You had to love to see Kelsey at the very end of that hyped up, and he told the mayor of Cincinnati, who kind of chirped at the Chiefs before the game. Travis Kelsey told him, "Stay in your lane, jabroni," and I absolutely love that. I was laughing so hard when I heard it. Travis Kelsey's a character, and we're about to see the Kelsey Bowl. This is not the Super Bowl. This is the first time in NFL history that two brothers have gone against each other in a Super Bowl. So very exciting. Travis Kelsey he did very well in this game. He was probably one of the last standing receivers in this game. And I think, you want to talk about the Chiefs. I have a lot of respect for the Chiefs. I really do. I have a lot of respect for what they came in and did in this game, because Patrick Mahomes very clearly was not healthy. You saw it. And even, halfway through the game, he's hobbling. He is in pain. A high ankle sprain does not go away in 1 week. And he did well. He did well. What's almost, I don't want to say it's comical, but what is humorous to me is you lost 3 wide receivers in this game. The Chiefs did. They lost Kadarius Toney fairly early. You lost Mecole Hardman, and then Juju goes down. So you're left with MVS, Travis Kelsey, and Isaiah Pacheco, and kind of sorted McKinnon if you want to throw him in. But I think Pacheco was the running back here to own. We had said last week when us three had a conversation, how are the Chiefs going to win this game? They're going to have to get the ball out of the hands quicker. Patrick Mahomes is going to have to do checkdowns. They're going to have to make the offense a little bit more Patrick Mahomes, get the hell out of the pot, or get rid of the ball quicker storyline. And that's what we saw. So they did it very well. I have a lot of respect for that. You did not see Patrick Mahomes holding the ball. Very rarely did you see him kind of straying away from the pocket. He did it a couple times, but not in true Mahomes.
The one time when he really needed to.
Yeah. So and they still got it done. Patrick Mahomes, there is absolutely no reason in my mind that Patrick Mahomes should not win the MVP, period. Period. Because he is the most valuable player for that team. And we've said this before. You take Jimmy G and put him in for the Chiefs. The Chiefs offense is horrible.
They don't even make the playoffs.
No.
Yeah. No, and the thing too with Patrick Mahomes, people, this is another thing that like all the NFL fans get all weird about, because Chiefs fans are like, wow, this is the greatest person that's ever lived. And then other NFL fans are like, wow, we never stop praising Patrick Mahomes. But you can't praise this guy enough. This game illustrates what he is able to do, throwing over 300 yards, minus 3 of his receivers with a bum ankle. Like, that's just incredible. No interceptions, 2 touchdowns. You don't see a stat line like that in this situation with anyone else.
No, it's the LeBron stuff. It's anybody that's like at the top. If you have haters or you have people that don't want to hear it, nobody likes it, you know, especially if you hate the Chiefs or whatever. You hate Mahomes just innately, like you're just tired of seeing it, and that's fine. And I think that just comes with the territory in sports anyway. I think that's what makes
same
it
thing
fun.
with Brady.
I think same with Brady. People still hate Brady. I had people on my timeline. Yeah, well, when Brady, like he wasn't even playing for anything, and it was a fan of a team that wasn't even the playoffs, and they're like, oh God, thank God he's gone. It's like that's just going to live on forever. There's nothing you're going to do about it. And I think it's. I do agree with you, Scotty. I think it's amazing to see in the moment. I think we're very blessed as Chiefs fans that had to live through miles of shit to like be in the situation we are. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun time to watch. I thought he did great. I thought it was quite incredible. The one thing, if we put lines out for who is going to be the leading receiver in this game from a yard standpoint, I'm not sure many people would have had Marquez Valdez-Scantling
as your leading receiver. Because that would, yeah.
He put the team on his back for that drive too, man. Like his touchdown drive.
Nobody for the Bengals even went over 90 yards receiving. Nobody. Yeah. And Marquez had 116. To me, that's a weird ass fucking stat, because I would have assumed that the Chiefs would have just been like everybody would have just been spread out. I think that's just a testament to how this game went. It was just very like differently game planned. You got freaking Kelsey trying to do some hook and ladders in the first quarter, like for no reason. Like it was all just very weird.
Well, this kind of brings up the question about Vegas, right? Because Vegas had the Chiefs winning, and all 3 of us in this room were like, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, you look at these teams on paper, and the Chiefs could lose by 30 points. Like, would you have been surprised if Joe Burrow threw for 400 yards and the Chiefs lost by 21 points? Like, that was perfectly within the realm of possible outcomes.
Right.
And none of us would have been real surprised by that, especially considering the injuries that happened. Are they just bullshitting? Like, is that just bullshit? Did they know somehow that the Bengals were going to forget how to play football for 4 quarters? I just don't get
because the NFL's rigged, and they tell Vegas.
Oh, it all comes full circle. Yeah, you're right.
Well, don't tell DeMar Hamlin that, because that means they would have known that he was going to go down.
Damn. No, that was unexpected. That was the only thing they didn't. They had to.
Like, that was the only.
Like, who in the hell put this in the script? Like, oh, this is real.
What?
Actually, I heard.
Well, then they had to hire a body double. That's just terrible news.
Oh Lord.
No, I from a Vegas perspective, it is kind of crazy, you know. But I mean, I know Slapdog said it earlier. Like, all these games have been within a field goal. Like, even getting to this point, and you say, you know, Mahomes has lost 3 in a row to Burrow. And you're like, damn, really? Like 3 in a row. But you look and you're like, it's combined total of 9 points. You're like, oh, okay, never mind. Like, so they were actually like really, really close. And yeah, it's very odd. But I think this game, if you take away the rest, it was actually like a really good back and forth game. They both got at each other when they had to. The only thing that was questionable to me was how the Bengals defense didn't go after Mahomes more and make him prove it on that leg early. They really didn't.
There was a play in particular that made me really not actually question if the NFL is rigged, but like, and I don't know, I'm not an NFL player, but it was towards the end of the game. It was still, you know, obviously it was a close game the whole time, but Patrick Mahomes was doodling around in the pocket, and kind of like he stepped forward in the pocket, and the pocket collapsed, and it didn't look like any of those guys really wanted to tackle Patrick Mahomes. And I remember, like, I watched that and I'm like, dude, like, that you could have taken a good shot at Patrick Mahomes right there, and you didn't. And
didn't it look odd?
It was a little interesting to me, because in that play in particular, and I don't have it to be able to show everybody, but I remember it, and it sticks out in my head where I'm like, you could have clocked him, because he was still standing in the pocket with the ball in his hand. It wouldn't have been like, you know, a an officiating call in which they would have been like, yo, you roughing the pass or anything. Like, you could have nailed him pretty good. And they didn't do it. And I was like,
Maybe
like either you love Patrick Mahomes and you just don't want to hurt him or something, but like you could have had a good clocking on him.
I think it's more of, I think that there is, the NFL rig stuff is obviously all bullshit tinfoil hat, but there is something to be said about a lot of penalties going in favor of superstar quarterbacks. And so I think probably prepping for games with people like Patrick Mahomes and even Joe Burrow or Tom Brady or whatever, they're saying, okay, if you get a chance to take him down, but don't make it look egregious because you're going to get flagged because he's a superstar quarterback.
Well, one of those sacks that Chris Jones had on Burrow was like one of the nicest sacks I've ever seen in NFL history, where he just kind of like hugged him and he just like set him down on the ground and then ran off. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, he was just giving him a gentle little warm embrace in the backfield and then sending him on his way. There's a lot of ways that this game could have played out. And honestly, like one play or the other, and it could have gone a different way. I go back to that 4th down call that the Bengals had where Burrow chucked it to Jamar Chase and they picked it up. Like, that's a game-changing play. Like, if they don't make that play, this game might be a 2-score game going towards the end, and it may not look the way it did. And so I think to me, like, as much as the Bengals fans and whomever, NFL fans in general, want to relish on those last few calls, I really think it's also disingenuous to how hard the Bengals were playing, right? Like, they were giving it their all, and they have their one guy literally a half second too late shoving Mahomes out of bounds. Like, everybody was playing their ass off, and it was a fun game to watch. Obviously, grateful that the Chiefs won in that one, but I think at the end of the day, I think it was fun to watch. I think it made up for the shit show that we saw from the NFC Championship game, where it was just like, all right, well, it's a clown car of quarterbacks, and we'll see what happens coming out the other end. So I think kudos. I think it was cool. I know everybody gets caught up in the stuff, but I think we're geared up for a pretty good Super Bowl.
I'm scared, man. I said the same thing before the Bengals game, and it worked out okay. But I just look at this Chiefs roster, and obviously I'm a diehard fan, and I will write my projections with blind optimism as usual. But man, I am not real optimistic.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's move. And I apologize. My internet went out there for a moment, but I am back. Did we move on to the Super Bowl conversation?
Oh, we were just getting there.
We just
transition. Here we go.
Okay, perfect. This is Kelsey Bowl. I'm sure I already said that once before. I'm sure you guys did as well. But I think that if you're a Chiefs fan, and I'm sorry if you guys said anything, stop me now. But Scotty, you mentioned you're worried. Alan, do you share those same sentiments? Did you say?
I mean, once your team gets to the Super Bowl, I think if you're a fan of, like, you got to a point that only so many people have gotten to. I saw something come out, today that said if Mahomes never picked up another football again, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think a lot of that has to do with getting to this point in time. If you look at the list of quarterbacks that have played and started in 3 Super Bowls, they're all Hall of Famers and damn near first ballot Hall of Famers. So yeah, I think you can't take it lightly as a fan. So for me, like, looking at this game, anything can happen. I mean, you just got to enjoy it, enjoy the ride, enjoy these few weeks. Not too worried about it. I think Mahomes gives you a chance, as we saw. I do think the Eagles are the better team.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question, because I do believe that the Eagles are the better team. I said the same thing last week. I think the Bengals are better than the Chiefs on paper. Like, the Bengals are a better team. Now, they've struggled to stay healthy, and we saw that last game when their offensive line was not doing very well. But I think the same thing this week. I think the Eagles on paper are the better team. I think 2 weeks for Patrick Mahomes is a blessing. I think, that, and I don't think he's going to be at a
Chiefs offense.
Yeah, because you lost all your wide receivers. But does that make Patrick Mahomes' injury go away? No. Does that make it maybe a little bit more bearable for him in the biggest stage on the planet? Yeah, I think it does. This is going to be interesting to me because the Eagles in every facet of their game are healthy, and they are looking very good. And so if I were a Chiefs fan, if I were you guys, I would be going in with some concern, because there is a lot of reason to be concerned, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but getting they've been to the Super Bowl now 3 times, and in the last one they lost in the Super Bowl. If they start even just sniff the narrative of a team that chokes in the Super Bowl, it's going to be very sad for me. So that's primarily why I'm nervous. I think that this team in particular is a clear demonstration of how awesome Patrick Mahomes actually is, because looking at this roster, there is just no way that they should have made it to the Super Bowl at all, but let alone put up a record-breaking season in terms of the numbers that he's had. Obviously, when Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback, anything is possible. So, like I said, blind optimism is still there, but I'm nervous about the idea of losing to the Eagles and then bam, the narrative is, wow, the Chiefs can really go far, but they can't get it done. And that makes me sad.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that the blind optimism thing. I think as a fan, you kind of have to have that. But there was a lot of talk in this offseason, and I just want to kind of to briefly touch on it. Nobody expected the Chiefs to be here. The narrative was Tyreek Hill is gone.
Yeah,
and I won't say nobody expected it, but especially in your guys' division, Russell Wilson's coming to the Broncos. Like, you guys better watch out. Like, I mean, there's that Devontae Adams joining with the Raiders. Like, that division, that conference within that division, like, it was going into the season, like, there was cause for concern in my opinion, because I'm sorry, Juju Smith and MVS are not Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill, so they're, can Patrick Mahomes succeed and take it to the next level? Very obviously he can, and we've seen it this year. But there was a lot of talk in the offseason about the Chiefs aren't going to the Super Bowl this year. One of these other teams are going to make it.
Yeah, we talked about in the offseason how the Chiefs had the hardest schedule in the NFL. And then it turns out, the Chargers kind of suck because they're all old and frail. And the Broncos really, really suck. And the Raiders also pretty much completely suck. So the Chiefs' schedule ended up being pretty good. So yeah, it all ended up working out okay. I do think that as Chiefs fans, we need to collectively get together and buy Tyreek Hill a present, because without Tyreek Hill, and granted, the offense was better with Tyreek Hill, so don't get me wrong, because he's an awesome player. But without Tyreek Hill, we've saved $30 million in cap space, in addition to the cap space being raised this year. We got 5 draft picks for him and made it to the Super Bowl. So we are sitting about as pretty as it gets when it comes to football, because we have the best quarterback possibly who's ever played the game, certainly the best quarterback in the game right now. And we have a ridiculous amount of cap space that we can get some other weapons with or back up our current weapons. And then draft picks to get some young guys to develop over the course of time. So I just couldn't be happier with where we're sitting presently.
Do you want them to re-sign Juju? Because if I don't, I'm not a Chiefs fan, but if I was a Chiefs fan, I wouldn't want them to re-sign Juju. I'd rather them get somebody better.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much he wants to get paid, because Juju's a very capable role-playing wide receiver. It's just you need to build around an elite wide receiver, which we have the cap space to do now. So whether we draft somebody or whether we pick up one of these other guys, that's certainly going to happen. One of those two things is going to happen. Nobody's under the illusion that we're going to try and make Juju Smith-Schuster our wide receiver 1 for the rest of time. So I think as an ancillary piece, if he is comfortable with the money that we offer him, then sure. But if we let him go, it's not going to be a big deal for me. So I like him on the team, but I'm not married to him by any means, and I don't think he's made that sort of an impact.
Okay. Does Travis Kelce retire if they win the Super Bowl?
I don't think so. I don't.
No? He comes back again.
He didn't slow down at all this year. I think going into the season, I expected you any day now. It's like any moment you expect to see Travis Kelce all of a sudden not perform the way that he has in the past. And from a numbers perspective, especially from the middle of the season on, you kind of did see that, but you can attribute that more to the fact that they decided to give the ball to Jerick McKinnon in the red zone every other play. So Travis Kelce didn't get all of his normal numbers that he normally does. But if you watch him on the field, he looks exactly the same as last year. He didn't take a step back at all. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is well into his prime, and he's going to be there for a long time. I think as long as the Chiefs have a legitimate shot to make a Super Bowl and Travis Kelce isn't in a real bad spot physically, I don't see him retiring. I think he could play for another several years and be just fine.
For selfish reasons, I would like him to retire because I have Noah Gray on my dynasty team for fantasy, and it's time for him to take the reins. So
Noah Gray's been doing some good work though too.
He has. He's not been like, wow, you can start him for fantasy purposes, but he's been like, he's on the field at times, and he is getting targets. So I hope the Chiefs win solely if Travis Kelce retires. So before we move on from the Super Bowl conversation and today's podcast, Alan, I think he's now having some internet issues, so he unfortunately fell off. But do you think, Scotty, The Super Bowl this year is being played at State Farm Stadium. That is in Arizona, Scottsdale, which is further reason to understand that the NFL is rigged, because who better than to have represent State Farm than Patrick Mahomes at State Farm Stadium at the Super Bowl? So the NFL is rigged. Do you believe that the Super Bowl should always be played at a neutral site? I'm curious as to your thought.
Yes, I do. I do think that. It seems like, I mean, obviously with the amount of coordination that goes into planning the Super Bowl, selling tickets a billion years in advance and all this stuff, sometimes you just get unlucky and then you have a team that, happens to have it there that makes it to the Super Bowl. It seems like that.
But if that happens, and that's my question, is like, if that, like the Bucks right. were hosting the Super Bowl, they made it to the Super Bowl. Do you think they should have to move to a different stadium?
I don't know, man. That's tough. I'm sure that there are so many factors that go into that we have no idea about that would make anyone change their mind. But in a vacuum, yes, it seems ridiculous to give one of the Super Bowl teams a home field advantage when it's supposed to be a neutral site. So, all the fans have to travel, so on and so forth. In fact, it should be something where they pick the Super Bowl after the, in a perfect world, they would pick the location after the teams have been decided to try and find a middle ground between the teams. So that way, even the fans have to travel relatively the same distance to make an appearance and all that stuff to make it as equal as possible.
Well, here's my other thing is I want to talk about Super Bowl ticket prices for just a moment, because they're absolutely outrageous. And I was talking to a friend today about this, and I think it was there was some truth behind it. So ticket prices are freaking insane. And if you don't know how expensive Super Bowl tickets are, you can get nosebleeds tickets for a little over $5,000. Pretty cheap, right? How unfair is that? How unfair? Because I'm going to tell you right now, Scotty, like there are those that are dedicated Chiefs fans who may fork out the money to go to that game, but there are some that cannot actually afford to go to the game. But they've been to every single game. They have been right up front. They have season tickets. They are, they have been through the shitty years for the Chiefs or whatever team. I'm going to use the Chiefs as an example. They've been through the shitty years. They have still came and supported, and then they can't afford to even go to the game. They're the people that you want at the game. I mean, so in my eyes anyway, like those are the fans you want to go, is the guys who've been with you through thick and thin, who've been supporting you year after year. And it's not even affordable enough for them to go to that. So in my eyes, it's kind of like, it's a little shitty in some ways. And I'm like, that's kind of wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's a money-making project. This is a business.
I get it. But like,
yeah.
You want to talk about neutral site, and I do. I share that same sentiment. I do think that the Super Bowl should be played at a neutral site. But then you also think, like, how many Bucks fans how many normal Bucks fans that just buy one-off tickets at the very last minute could actually afford to even go to the venue to support the team? So
yeah, no, I think it'd be cool. And maybe the Chiefs, I know the Chiefs are big fans of this podcast because this podcast is big fans of them as a Chiefs podcast. But I think it'd be cool for an NFL team to like fork over, $10 million, between all of them, and just buy a shitload of tickets and do like a contest or something in the community where their stadium's at to let their fan base go to the game or buy them tickets and mitigate the cost. You have all these millionaires in here, and obviously all of them are very charitable. They all have different foundations, whatever. $10 million between all of these NFL players is, not insignificant, but it's also not going to make a huge impact. So I think something like that would be cool, that it's just a tradition that the Super Bowl teams, donate
like
some money to get
like
the fans there.
Everybody gives $150,000 to like get some tickets
fans in here.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Sorry about that. A little. As we are not a sponsored stream, we're having to do this all by ourselves. So I had to throw a couple more quarters into the internet to make it run again.
You guys are gonna make editing this podcast fucking impossible with everyone's back. I'm gonna have like 12 different audio streams to put together. But don't worry, I got it. I got it.
Sorry about that. No, I was just going to say last night, I mean, I have two small kids and we were watching the game and they get into it a little bit. Like they just pick, we'll be watching anything and they're like, Dad, what team do we want to win? And so we're at like that level. But, my son, he's 9 and he's figured it out. Like he likes the Chiefs and he's talking shit at school sometimes to some kids, which, super cool.
Respect.
But, they came out of their room last night because we had put them.
It's going to turn into Scotty. That's bad news.
Mm-hmm.
The game got over kind of late, but the kids they came out a couple different times to use the restroom and look at the score and everything, and then they came out when they heard me yelling and like, Dad, did we win? And it was when Butker kicked that field goal, And the first thing my son says to me is like, "Can we go to the game?" I'm like, "Fuck no, we're not going to the game."
Yeah. That's my point, man. Like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, I get it's gonna be expensive. Like $1,000, like that hurts, but like maybe families could afford to like once in a lifetime. Like if the Cardinals, we're not doing good. We're like, but if like we had a one-off chance and we made it to the Super Bowl, like that would be an experience, right? And $1,000.
Think about it.
You would, and that's what I'm saying. It's like it still might not be attainable for a lot of people, but you certainly would be like, should we do this?
So quick plug for the city of Phoenix. Do you know that same weekend? I think it's the weekend before everybody gets in is the Waste Management Open, like right before everybody's flying in.
What? We're going to the Super Bowl,
so it's
boys.
like
that would be such an awesome 2 weeks.
It's like back to back. It's either the same. It can't be the exact same weekend. They wouldn't do that to themselves. But I think it's like either the weekend right before everybody gets in. I think it's really close because I was hearing people talking about it.
If we just went and spent all day on hole 16 at the Waste Management Open, just got hammered drunk, and then drove from there to the Super Bowl, that would be the best day of my life. Don't tell my wife
we wouldn't drive. We wouldn't drive. We
would get driven Uber. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
we don't make
get wasted management.
Oh my god,
we're geniuses. Yeah, that would be pretty fun. Last thing here. This is Andy Reid rematch, kind of, sort of, not really. It's the Andy Reid Bowl. It's a the Kelsey Bowl. Because Andy Reid, if you did not know, he used to be a coach with the Eagles before he went over to the Chiefs. So he's going to go back to his quote unquote alma mater. I don't know if that's fair to say because he's been in a lot of different places, but there's a narrative there for sure. I'll let all you brainiacs out there kind of spin your own storyline, but pretty exciting. Andy Reid is well known for being at the Eagles, and now he is very obviously head coach of the Chiefs, but pretty exciting. Pretty exciting stuff.
Reid would you put him in like the top 5 most likable coaches of all time?
Yes.
I feel like he's got
to be. All the man wants to do is eat cheeseburgers and win games, and he's like, it's awesome. I love him.
So
that's you can't.
They ask him about the game in Germany. He's like, I just want a bratwurst.
Yeah, bratwurst.
Like, oh, okay, cool.
That's right on par.
No,
that is.
I saw some smoke on Twitter, and they're like, "Is this the most like sportsmanlike or amicable Super Bowl we've had in a long time?" Because you have two teams that have a lot of respect for each other. There's a lot of overlap. You got the brothers that love each other and have supported each other's team. You got Andy Reid, who said nothing but good things about Philly, and I know Philly fans loved him for all the things they did. And then AJ Brown and Willie Gay, they went to school together.
They went to high school together. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so they're buddies and they support each other. And it's like, aside from, I think, people hating the fan bases by themselves, I think if you look at both teams looking at each other, you're not going to get a lot of that bulletin board material. I think it's going to be a lot of mutual respect. I think you're going to see a lot of head nods. You got, Hurts and Mahomes playing against each other. And so there's just like a lot of storylines here.
Neither of them are 100%.
Well, yeah, I think you're just kind of like, I like these guys.
You know what that smells like to me, Alan? Good script writing.
You're right. It's all coming together. Well, that narrative is evidenced by me because, as you saw, I am a diehard Chiefs fan, and I'll say whatever I have to say to get them to give them my support. But I do have nothing but respect for the Eagles. This team has been amazing to watch all season. Jalen Hurts is a badass, and then AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. These guys are so much fun to watch. Like, this is going to be, Chiefs win or lose, this is going to be a fun game to witness. And I'm happy that this is the way that it worked out with the Eagles, taking the division.
Alan's not. He would have liked the Bengals to win so he could have had his money, and maybe I could have had a bottle of whiskey out of it, but it's fine. It's okay. Okay. Is there anything else we want to cover? Any other questions or anything regarding the Super Bowl that is upcoming?
I do just want to say one last thing that, Alan, you hedged your bet. You bet against the Chiefs, and you said if the Bengals win, you're going to buy alcohol for all of us. I want to start this by saying I would never actually do this because I'm not a monster. But if you brought me a bottle of whiskey, I seriously considered taking a video of myself pouring it down the drain. and saying,
you're an animal.
This is dirty
That's
money.
fucked up. Dude.
This is dirty money. I can't accept this in good conscience. But of course, I would never
man.
actually do that. But the thought did cross my mind.
Shame on you, dude.
You know,
I would have drank the shit out of that.
Obviously I'm a Chiefs fan, but I legitimately thought the Bengals were the better team. Like I thought.
I
still think they are. Okay.
I think they are too.
I'll agree there.
I think they are too. I think they just had a shitty game plan and they played very poorly.
And their offensive line is destroyed. And we said that for several weeks, that without that offensive line has sucked for 2 years because of injury or whatever. And that's the game plan. You get to the quarterback and you mitigate their best weapons.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. It was a good week. I think it was a cool weekend. The first game was a dud on Sunday.
I just hope it's not a dud. But that's the only thing I hope with the Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowls. I hope it is a good game because as a bipartisan party, I just want to watch chaos. I'm a big fan of chaos, always have been. And when it's not my own team, I root for chaos every single time. And so I hope this game is chaotic. I hope that there's some wow plays. I hope that the refs don't fuck this up like they did the Chiefs game. And I hope that it's just a good game. I truly do hope that it is fun to watch, and I don't care who wins it. I just want it to be good.
I think it's going to support us.
What's that?
You said you don't care enough to support us.
No,
we don't have any Eagles fans on the podcast. We do have 2 Chiefs fans.
I know. That's why that's why you know, because otherwise
I'd be the same way.
Yeti's been like in the group chat. He's like all bought in on the Chiefs and stuff. Like he's a fan, and I'm like, no, we're not a Chiefs podcast.
Well, look at it this way.
Succumb to it.
Look at it this way, Hunter. It's you get to watch your stadium on Super Bowl Sunday. So that's
I do. Cool. that's about as close as I'm going to get for quite a while.
You get to see people in your stadium for Super Bowl Sunday. That's pretty neat.
That is so exciting. I'm very
silver lining.
Thank you.
Roles reversed. I would be giving you the middle finger if the Cardinals were going to be going to a Super Bowl. I would be telling you to go fuck yourself.
I don't.
Well, then should I be telling you guys that?
I think it's fun.
From me?
Oh, I think it's fun. Just lean into
fuck
it.
You guys.
Well,
fuck
here's
both
the
of you. The refs ruined that game. The Bengals should have won. There you go.
I really do think that is fun, but I also think, like, from a realistic perspective, I think if it was the Cardinals in the Super Bowl, I might even buy like a Cardinals jersey or something. I'd support.
You have a sweatshirt because it didn't fit me.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'd at least rock the Cardinals jersey for the game.
I'd buy a St. Louis Cardinals jersey just to piss you off. It's not quite right.
Look, guys, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm a realistic fan. We're not going to be there for.
I've said that before in my life. Okay, I sat there and said the Super Bowl was for other teams, not for my own. And I would go to Super Bowl parties, and I would wear Chiefs gear because I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, my team's never going to be there. And then it happens, and then you don't know what to do with yourself when you finally catch it. Like you don't know what to do with your hands.
I don't know if I would love to see it in my lifetime. I just don't know if I will.
And
so there are other teams that I kind of root for. Is like. Yeah, and we touched on this. Like, there are teams that you kind of have to like root for because your team sucks. So you're like, okay, well, I need to kind of pick a team to just kind of support. I think it's gonna be the Lions for me. I think the Lions are gonna be. I know it's the same division, but I think the Lions will be like my.
That's tough.
They'll be like my. I'm rooting for you guys.
Well, that's like the Cubs. They've like never done it. They got a lot of good players, a lot of fan support. If they had to do it, like everybody's gonna be. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
So. Right. Well, just real quick, this doesn't pertain to any of our listeners. Alan, we are having a Super Bowl party for Chiefs fans, and you are invited. And we already have a pretty.
I got the text.
Good. Okay.
I got the text. I already talked to. Well, I'll say his name. I already talked to Scott the day before, and I said we're having a party at your house. He's like, "Well, okay."
Damn.
Perfect. Hunter, you're also invited if you want to make the trip.
I appreciate it. I probably, unfortunately, won't make it. Last thing before we close up shop and get the heck out of here, I do want to briefly touch on something we got going on next week. We are on the horizon of episode 100. We've been doing this for almost 100 episodes, and what's absolutely insane. That's like roughly there's over 100 hours of us recording, doing fantasy football conversations, doing NFL conversations. And for those of you who have joined us for this ride, I from the bottom of my heart, truly, I do really appreciate it, man. Like it has been such a fun time doing this, and we're not slowing down. We are not slowing down. Scotty has been writing for us and getting into the writing game. we haven't been talking about fantasy football a whole lot, but that is coming in the off season. And I truly, more than anything else, just want to say thank you guys for joining us throughout this whole ride. Alan, it has been a pleasure getting you on the team as well. And it's so much fun watching this thing grow. But I'm telling you all this as one, a thank you, but also two, starting today, for those of you that are listening on podcast, we're doing an award show for our 100th episode for fantasy football. So it's kind of our superlatives where we're going to give out awards, but really it's not us. It's all you brainiacs out there. So we're going to do an award show. Go check out the Google form. It is pinned on our Twitter, and go submit your votes, because your vote does truly count for who will win certain
It's the only one that counts. We're not voting. It's all you.
No.
Yeah, no, we're not. So go vote and then tune in live for 100th episode next Monday. So it's going to be a good time. Like I said, go do your votes. It'll take like 2 minutes, and we've already got the candidates on there. All you got to do is click.
And they're not boring categories either. It's like, which NFL player would you want to bang your wife, and this and that. Yeah. There's a bunch of good, awesome, slightly football related awards to be given out.
Some are more football. Like, you could bang my significant other, but also, who was the best mid-tier draft pick this year? So there's some give and take in there.
Classic excitement.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's so funny.
That's it. That's all we got. I do appreciate it, though. It's been fun, and we're very excited for episode 100. So if you don't already, I highly suggest that on Twitter or YouTube, click the notification. So when we go live on Monday, we'll have a time set, but we don't currently have it at the moment. So be looking out for that. Come join us, and it will be a hell of a good time for our award ceremony. So, all right, gentlemen, we ready to get the hell out of here?
Let's do it. I got a shitload of editing to do, apparently.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, we
are
out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leather Brains. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and leaving a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app and YouTube, as well as following us at Leather Brains on Twitter and Instagram. If you're looking for specific fantasy advice, including draft advice, trade insight, starts and sits, or even if you want our thoughts on your sports bets, please feel free to send us a DM on Twitter for an answer and a chance to have your question featured on a future episode. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back before you know it.